Charmed but sisterhood, sacrifice, love, and the price of protecting the people you care about. The Halliwell sisters weren't perfect heroes. They fought, lost, healed, and kept going. But the cast's real lives have carried their own battles, transformations, heartbreaks, and unexpected turns. In 2026, we return to the manor and see what happened to the cast of Charmed then and now. Brian Krause as Leo Wyatt, the gentle whitelighter who went from fixing the Halliwell's house to becoming Piper's great love and the sisters' most trusted magical ally. Born in 1969 in El Toro, California, he was 29 when Leo first appeared. Leo was calm until somebody threatened his family. Between forbidden romance, elder politics, fatherhood, and dying more times than anyone should, he somehow remained the steady heart of Charmed. After the series, Krause kept acting in film and television, appearing in Mad Men, Castle, SWAT, and other projects while staying closely connected to the fantasy fandom. As of 2026, Brian Krause is 57 and regularly reconnects with fans through conventions and the House of Halliwell podcast alongside Holly Marie Combs and Drew Fuller. Leo started as the cute handyman who knew a little too much about magic. 8 seasons later, he was family, and nearly 3 decades on, Krause still feels like one of the Halliwell house's own. Dorian Gregory as Daryl Morris, the street-smart San Francisco detective who somehow became the Halliwell sisters' unofficial human cleanup crew. Born in 1971 in Washington, D.C., he was 27 when Charmed entered his world. Daryl had no magic, no potions, and definitely no Book of Shadows. What he did have was loyalty, and enough patience to keep explaining why another supernatural crime scene made absolutely no sense. Gregory later became the final permanent host of Soul Train and continued working across television, including appearances in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Grey's Anatomy. Today, at 55, Gregory remains active beyond acting. Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a child, he has spent years raising awareness, speaking to young people, and supporting diabetes-related causes. Daryl survived demons, cover-ups, and years of Halliwell chaos without a single magical power. Honestly, making it out of that friendship alive might have been his greatest supernatural achievement. Julian McMahon as Cole Turner, the dangerously charming half-demon who turned Phoebe's love life into one of Charm's messiest supernatural roller coasters. Born in 1968 in Sydney, Australia, he was 32 when Cole arrived in 2000. Cole could go from devoted boyfriend to full-blown demon in a heartbeat. That constant tug between love and evil made him unpredictable, and McMahon somehow kept fans rooting for him even when Balthazar showed up. After leaving the manor, McMahon became Dr. Christian Troy on Nip Tuck, then played Dr. Doom in Fantastic Four, and later led FBI Most Wanted, turning Cole into just one highlight of a huge career. In his final years, McMahon kept his cancer battle intensely private while continuing to work. Julian McMahon died in 2025 at 56 from lung metastasis caused by head and neck metastatic cancer. Cole Turner was toxic, romantic, demonic, and ridiculously hard to quit. McMahon gave Charmed the bad boy fans knew was trouble, and somehow still wanted Phoebe to choose. Alyssa Milano as Phoebe Halliwell, the free-spirited youngest sister who started out reckless, curious, and always ready to poke at magic. She probably should have left alone. Born in 1972 in Brooklyn, New York, she was 25 in 1998. Phoebe grew from the wild sister into a powerful witch, advice columnist, wife, and mother. Between premonitions, demon boyfriends, and sister drama, she usually followed her heart first and dealt with the fallout later. After Charmed, Milano starred in Mistresses, Insatiable, and other television projects while continuing the career that had already made her famous years earlier on Who's the Boss. As of 2026, Alyssa Milano is 53. Outside acting, she remains politically and socially active and became one of the most recognizable celebrity voices associated with the #MeToo movement. Phoebe spent 8 seasons trusting love, losing love, and occasionally falling for the absolute worst supernatural guy available. Milano made all that chaos feel unmistakably Phoebe. Shannen Doherty as Prue Halliwell, the fiercely protective oldest sister who carried the responsibility of keeping Piper and Phoebe alive while mastering some seriously powerful telekinesis. Born in 1971 in Memphis, Tennessee, she was 27 in 1998. Prue was stubborn, brave, and never afraid to take the first swing at a demon. Her clashes with Phoebe could get heated, but when the sisters were threatened, nobody fought harder to protect the Halliwell family. After leaving Charmed in 2001, Doherty returned to the 90210 universe, worked in film and reality television, and eventually spoke more openly about the battles and controversies that had followed her career. In her final years, she openly documented a long fight with stage 4 breast cancer, including its spread to her brain and bones. Shannen Doherty died from metastatic breast cancer in 2024 at age 53. Prue only had 3 seasons, but she never felt like a small chapter. Doherty gave the original Power of Three its toughest big sister, and fans never really stopped missing her. Drew Fuller as Chris, the mysterious white lighter from the future, who dropped into the Halliwells' lives with secrets, attitude, and a mission nobody fully understood. Born in 1980 in Atherton, California, he was 23 when Chris became a major part of Charmed. Chris could be sarcastic, stubborn, and suspicious of almost everyone, but underneath that edge was a son desperately trying to save his family. Once his true connection to Piper and Leo came out, everything about him hit differently. After Charmed, Fuller found another long-running television role as Trevor LeBlanc on Army Wives. He also appeared in films, independent projects, and guest roles while remaining a familiar face to fans of early 2000s TV. Currently, is 46 and still embraces the show that made him a fan favorite. He regularly reconnects with Holly Marie Combs and Brian Krause through conventions and the House of Halliwell podcast. Chris arrived looking like trouble from the future and left as one of the Halliwell family's most emotional stories. Fuller made the reveal worth every suspicious look along the way. Ted King as Andy Trudeau, Prue's childhood sweetheart and the San Francisco inspector who kept getting way too close to discovering the Halliwells' supernatural secret. Born in 1965 in Hollywood, California, he was 33 when Andy entered the story. Andy had the tough job of being both a cop and the guy who still loved Prue. Every strange crime pushed him closer to the truth, while every answer made his relationship with her even more complicated. After leaving Charmed, King became a familiar face in daytime television, taking major roles on General Hospital, One Life to Live, and The Bold and the Beautiful. Soap fans got plenty more of that intense, no-nonsense energy. Today, Ted King is 61 and remains active in television. Away from the badge and supernatural chaos, he has kept a lower-key family life while continuing to work steadily across daytime drama. Andy never got the happy ending Prue fans wanted, but King made him more than the cop boyfriend. He felt like the one normal guy who almost understood just how crazy the Halliwell world really was. Greg Vaughn as Dan Gordon, the handsome next-door neighbor who walked straight into Piper's complicated love life without realizing he was competing with a white lighter. Born in 1973 in Dallas, Texas, he was 26 when Dan joined Charmed. Dan was charming, protective, and refreshingly normal, which was exactly the problem. Piper cared for him, but when your ex can literally orb into the room, the nice guy next door is fighting a pretty unfair battle. Vaughn later became a daytime TV favorite through General Hospital, The Young and the Restless, and Days of Our Lives. He also starred in Queen's Sugar, showing he could move well beyond romantic soap story territory. At present, Greg Vaughn is 53 and continues working while keeping close ties to his family and longtime fans. His career has stretched across modeling, soaps, primetime drama, and the occasional Halliwell nostalgia trip. Dan Gordon did almost everything right, he just picked the wrong woman to fall for. Vaughn made him likable enough that, for a while, even Team Leo had to admit Piper had a seriously tough choice. Holly Marie Combs as Piper Halliwell, the practical middle sister who went from nervous peacemaker to the toughest mother in the Halliwell Manor. Born in 1973 in San Diego, California, she was 24 when Charmed began. Piper could freeze a room with one flick of her hands, then blow it apart a few seasons later. Between running P3, raising magical kids, and keeping her sisters alive, she basically never got a day off. After Charmed, Combs joined Pretty Little Liars as Ella Montgomery and continued appearing in television projects, conventions, and reunions that kept her closely tied to the Halliwell fandom. In 2026, is 52. She co-hosts the House of Halliwell podcast and has spoken openly about her decades-long friendship with Shannen Doherty and the grief of losing her in 2024. Piper started as the sister who worried about everything and ended up surviving almost everything. Combs made that transformation feel earned and gave Charmed its beating heart. Kaley Cuoco as Billie Jenkins, the fearless young witch whose search for her missing sister turned the final season into one last magical family war. Born in 1985 in Camarillo, California, she was 19 when Billie joined Charmed in 2005. Billie arrived with telekinesis, serious confidence, and absolutely no idea how complicated Halliwell life could get. Once Christy returned, loyalty to her sister pushed her straight against the Charmed ones. A year later, Cuoco landed Penny on The Big Bang Theory, becoming one of television's biggest comedy stars. She later led The Flight Attendant and voiced Harley Quinn. Today, Kaley Cuoco is 40. She is also a producer through Yes, Norman Productions, and has built a family life with actor Tom Pelphrey while balancing major television and film projects. Billie was supposed to be the new kid learning magic. Funny enough, Cuoco left the manor and became one of the biggest stars Charmed ever helped launch. Jennifer Rhodes as Penny Halliwell, the legendary Grams whose sharp tongue, magical power, and zero tolerance for nonsense made her the Halliwell family's ultimate matriarch. Born in 1947 in Rosiclare, Illinois, she was 51 during her early appearances. Grams could return from the dead and immediately start giving orders like she'd never left. She loved her granddaughters fiercely, but sentimental speeches usually came with a spell, a lecture, or both. Rhodes built a career spanning stage, film, and television, appearing in Heathers, Friends, ER, Quantum Leap, and countless guest roles before Grams became her signature character. At present, Jennifer Rhodes is 78, turning 79 on August 17, 2026. She has remained a beloved part of Charmed reunions and fan events, still warmly embraced as the family's unforgettable Grams. Penny Halliwell died before the story even started and still managed to run the family. Honestly, that may be the most Halliwell thing anyone ever did. James Reed as Victor Bennett, the Halliwell sisters' complicated father who spent years running from magic before finally learning how to be part of the family again. Born in 1953 in Buffalo, New York, Reed took over the role in 2001. Victor had no powers, no spells, and plenty of baggage with his daughters. Still, once demons started circling his grandchildren, that protective dad instinct kicked in fast, and suddenly disappearing wasn't an option anymore. Reed already had a strong resume through North and South, Remington Steele, and Beaches. After Charmed, he stayed busy with Wildfire, Days of Our Lives, and General Hospital, proving daytime villains suited him surprisingly well. As of now, James Reed is 73. Away from acting, he earned a master's degree in psychology and built a long family life with actress and attorney Wendy Kilbourne, far quieter than Victor's supernatural family drama. Victor spent years trying to escape the Halliwell madness, only to discover there really was no escaping family. Reed made him frustrating, flawed, and eventually exactly the dad the sisters needed. Ivan Sergei as Henry Mitchell, the grounded parole officer who fell for Paige without letting witches, demons, or magical secrets scare him off. Born in 1971 in New Jersey, Sergei joined Charmed during its final season. Henry worked because he never tried to compete with Paige's powers. He challenged her, listened when things got weird, and somehow treated marrying a witch like just another unexpected turn in a very unusual relationship. Before the Halliwell Manor, Sergei had already starred in Once a Thief and Jack and Jill. He later kept moving through television movies, dramas, and guest roles, building a career around dependable leading man charm. At present, Ivan Sergei is 55. He has kept his private life relatively low-key, compared with many late 90s TV stars, with far more attention staying on his acting work than celebrity drama or public controversy. Henry married into the most dangerous family in San Francisco and barely blinked. Sergei made him feel like the rare charmed boyfriend who saw the supernatural chaos and simply said, "Okay, I'm still in." Michael Bailey Smith as Balthazar, Cole Turner's massive demonic form and one of the most physically intimidating creatures ever to come crashing into the Halliwells' lives. Born in 1957 in Alpena, Michigan, Smith brought the demon to life during the show's early 2000s run. Balthazar didn't need witty banter. Red skin, heavy prosthetics, and that enormous frame did plenty of talking, making Cole's darker half feel genuinely dangerous whenever the human disguise disappeared. Smith became a go-to actor for creatures and bruisers, appearing in Men in Black 2, The Hills Have Eyes, Star Trek Voyager, and even playing other monsters on Charmed, including Shax and a Grimlock. Nowadays, Michael Bailey Smith is 68. His life outside acting is just as unexpected. He served as an Army paratrooper, pursued professional football, and later built a second career in technology and global sales. Cole had the romance, but Balthazar brought the nightmare fuel. Smith made sure that whenever Phoebe's boyfriend went full demon, nobody needed an explanation. The big red guy meant trouble. Billy Drago as Barbas, the demon of fear who could dig into your worst nightmare and make it feel terrifyingly real. Born in 1945 in Hugoton, Kansas, he was 53 when Barbas first haunted Charmed in 1999. Barbas never needed brute strength to win. He whispered, manipulated, and turned fear itself into a weapon, which made him one of those villains the sisters could never truly relax around. Drago had already mastered the art of playing unforgettable bad guys, especially as Frank Nitti in The Untouchables. He later appeared in The X-Files, The Hills Have Eyes, and Supernatural. In his later years, Drago kept a lower profile after decades of villain roles. His wife, actress Silvana Gallardo, died in 2012, a major personal loss. Billy Drago died from complications of a stroke in 2019 at age 73. Barbas kept coming back because fear never really goes away. Drago understood that better than most, and made one raised eyebrow feel more dangerous than a room full of demons. Finola Hughes as Patty Halliwell, the loving mother whose death shaped the sisters long before they fully understood the magical family they came from. Born in 1959 in London, England, she was 39 when Patty first appeared. Patty brought warmth every time she returned from the spirit world. Her scenes filled in missing pieces about Prue, Piper, Phoebe, Paige, and the painful choices that shaped the Halliwell family. Hughes was already a soap icon as Anna Devane on General Hospital, a role she has played across decades. She also starred in Staying Alive and All My Children, earning a Daytime Emmy along the way. Now, Finola Hughes is 66 and remains connected to General Hospital, returning again as Anna Devane after a brief break. Outside acting, she has also worked as a director and raised 3 children. Patty wasn't around for the daily demon chaos, but her presence never really left the manor. Hughes made every ghostly return feel less like magic and more like mom coming home. Joel Swetow as Avatar Alpha, the calm, unsettling leader who promised a perfect world with one very creepy catch. Nobody was allowed to feel too much. Born in 1951 in New York City, he was 50 when Alpha entered Charmed. Alpha rarely acted like a traditional villain. He spoke softly, stayed composed, and sold utopia like it was the obvious answer. Right up until the Halliwells realized peace without free will wasn't much of a bargain. Swetow built a long genre resume beyond the Avatars, appearing in Star Trek, Stargate SG-1, Alias, The Orville, and American Horror Stories, along with extensive voice work. Today, Joel Swetow is 74 and has kept his personal life mostly out of the spotlight. By the way, I do audio tags really well. His career has stayed focused on character work rather than celebrity headlines, with decades of sci-fi and fantasy roles behind him. Avatar Alpha offered the sisters paradise and somehow made it feel suspicious from the first conversation. Swetow proved that on Charmed, the calmest guy in the room could be the one to worry about most. Jenya Lano as Inspector Sheridan, the sharp, suspicious detective who refused to accept that the Halliwell sisters were simply unlucky enough to be near every bizarre crime in San Francisco. Born in 1971 in Moscow, she was 33 when Sheridan entered Charmed. Sheridan was relentless, nosy, and honestly way too close to the truth for comfort. While Daryl learned when to look the other way, she kept digging until magic itself became impossible to ignore. After Charmed, Lano continued working across television and film, with appearances in NCIS, The Shield, Ghost Whisperer, and other crime and drama projects that suited her intense screen presence. At present, Jenya Lano is 55 and has kept a fairly private life away from celebrity headlines. Her career has stayed centered on acting rather than social media fame or public controversy. Sheridan didn't have powers, but she nearly exposed the Halliwells using nothing more than police instincts and pure stubbornness. Lano made every interrogation feel like the sisters were one bad answer away from disaster. Eric Dane as Jason Dean, the confident media executive who became Phoebe's boss, boyfriend, and one more unlucky mortal trying to date a Halliwell without knowing the whole magical truth. Born in 1972 in San Francisco, he was 30 when Jason arrived. Jason had charm, money, and enough confidence to keep up with Phoebe, until teleportation, demons, and secret witch business entered the relationship. Once he learned the truth, normal dating was pretty much over. Dane soon broke out as Dr. Mark McSteamy Sloan on Grey's Anatomy, then led The Last Ship and later took a darker turn as Cal Jacobs on Euphoria, showing far more range than the handsome boyfriend label suggested. Today, Eric Dane is 53. In 2025, he publicly revealed that he had been diagnosed with ALS, and has since spoken candidly about the disease, while continuing to appear publicly and support ALS awareness. Jason Dean thought managing Phoebe's career would be complicated. Turns out dating a witch was the real corporate crisis, and Dane made the doomed romance charming enough that fans still remember it. Kerr Smith as Kyle Brody, the driven Homeland Security agent whose obsession with the Avatars pulled Paige into one of the strangest romances of Charm's later seasons. Born in 1972 in Exton, Pennsylvania, he was 32 when Kyle entered the story. Kyle was intense from day one. He carried years of anger over his parents' deaths, and even falling for Paige couldn't stop him from chasing answers that slowly pushed him toward dangerous choices. Before the Halliwells, Smith was already famous as Jack McPhee on Dawson's Creek. He later appeared in Life Unexpected, The Fosters, Riverdale, and numerous television movies, while maintaining a steady career. At present, Kerr Smith is 54 and has mostly avoided the louder side of Hollywood celebrity culture. He continues acting while keeping his personal life relatively private and staying connected to fans of his long-running TV work. Kyle Brody spent half his time hunting avatars and the other half making Paige wonder whether dating him was a terrible idea. Smith made that mix of obsession and romance surprisingly hard to look away from. Marnette Patterson as Christy Jenkins, Billy's long-lost sister whose return turned a family reunion into one of the final season's biggest betrayals. Born in 1980 in Los Angeles, California, she was 25 when Christy entered Charmed. Christy looked fragile at first, but years under the Triad's influence had twisted her loyalties. Patterson played that shift well, making her feel wounded, dangerous, and just convincing enough to pull Billy away from the Halliwells. Before Charmed, Patterson had already worked steadily in television, including Something So Right and Movie Stars. She later appeared in Supernatural, American Sniper, and a string of film and TV projects. At present, Marnette Patterson is 46 and has kept a lower public profile than many of her former co-stars. She remains active around acting and family life without much tabloid noise attached to her name. Christy was the sister Billy spent years searching for, and the person who nearly destroyed everything once she came back. Patterson gave that final season twist exactly the uneasy energy it needed. Elizabeth Dennehy as Sandra, the calm but calculating elder whose authority made it clear that even the magical world had its own version of management. Born in 1960 in Jacksonville, North Carolina, she was 44 when Sandra became part of the Halliwell's story. Sandra rarely needed to raise her voice. She carried the kind of quiet power that made Leo and the sisters listen, even when the elder's decisions felt frustrating, distant, or completely out of touch. Dennehy built a long career across television, film, and theater, appearing in Star Trek: The Next Generation, Seinfeld, Gattaca, Hancock, and many other projects with strong character work. As of 2026, Elizabeth Dennehy is 65 and remains closely connected to acting and the stage. She also carries a major Hollywood legacy as the daughter of acclaimed actor Brian Dennehy. Sandra represented the side of magic that came with rules, meetings, and consequences. Dennehy made her feel like the kind of elder you respected, even when you really wanted to argue with her. Debbie Morgan as the Seer, the mysterious prophet whose visions helped guide the Source while she quietly played a much longer and more dangerous game. Born in 1951 in Dunn, North Carolina, she was 50 when the Seer appeared. The Seer was patient, smooth, and rarely rattled. Morgan gave her the kind of confidence that made every prophecy feel like part of a plan nobody else had fully figured out yet. Long before Charmed, Morgan had already earned acclaim for Eve's Bayou, Roots, The Next Generations, and All My Children. She later continued with major roles in Power, Lovecraft Country, and Our Kind of People. Today, Debbie Morgan is 74. She has also spoken openly about domestic violence in her family history and used her voice to bring attention to abuse, survival, and generational trauma. The Seer never needed to throw the first punch. Morgan made her dangerous because she always seemed to know what was coming, and usually knew exactly how to use it. Rose McGowan as Paige Matthews, the rebellious half-sister who rebuilt the power of three with telekinetic orbing, sharp instincts, and absolutely zero interest in following magical rules. Born in 1973 in Florence, Italy, she was 28 when Paige arrived in 2001. Paige had to replace a sister she never knew while figuring out witchcraft, white lighter powers, and a family she had just discovered. McGowan gave her enough attitude to make the transition feel fresh instead of forced. After Charmed, McGowan starred in Grindhouse, directed the short film Dawn, and gradually stepped away from mainstream Hollywood while writing her memoir Brave and exploring work behind the camera. As of 2026, Rose McGowan is 52. She became a major voice in the #MeToo movement, and later left Los Angeles for Mexico, where she has spoken about finding a quieter, freer life away from the Hollywood machine. Paige walked into a family still grieving Prue, and somehow made the manor feel whole again. McGowan didn't copy what came before. She gave Charmed a completely different kind of sister. The magic of Charmed still lives through its fans, its sisterhood, and the unforgettable characters who shaped a generation. Thank you for watching. Share which cast member's journey surprised you most, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more classic TV stories.